Hey, how about some southpaws for Carolina out of the transfer portal? A point guard they just knocked out of the NCAA tournament, and a big that would make Roy Williams himself salivate.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, March 31st, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day to get your last day of March going the right way. Special shout out to all the everydayers with us, the Locked On Tar Heels Discord members, and the wildly growing Locked On Tar Heels insiders. I'm dropping transfer portal rumors and stuff in there all the time to our insiders. Like, that's where I'm sending all that. And man, it's going off like crazy. We'd love to have you join us. Links in the show notes, by the way. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Check it out. Coming up on the show today, as we often do during the transfer portal season, I want to update you on a couple guys that are in the portal right now. One whom Carolina is very much so in contact with. The other is a new entry that I think the Tar Heels should go after. And then we'll get updated on our weekend whip around and all that as well. So let's dive right into it. And we're going to start with San Diego State point guard Nick Boyd. If you can't beat him, join him. It's one of those situations. Obviously, Carolina bounced San Diego State out of the play-in game of the NCAA tournament quite handily, I might add. And Nick Boyd was the starting point guard on that team. Obviously, we've talked about his teammate Magoon Gwath already. It doesn't sound like there's much movement for Carolina there. In fact, none actually connected to Carolina, which is fine. You know, I like his game, but look, there's only so many you're going to go after. But specifically, I always like to start these transfer portal conversations talking about Carolina's connection to this player, or, you know, what level of communication they've had. Well, Nick Boyd visited campus this week per Inside Carolina's Sherelle McMillan, who was multi-sourced on that. So this is good intel, and no news as of yet as I record as to how that visit went, but we do know it happened. Nick Boyd is a 6'3", yes, come on, give me all the height, 175-pound, left-handed, true point guard, right? Like, he is a point guard, not just a combo guard, although he kind of is that. He played 3 years at FAU. He was part of that Final Four team and started of that Final Four team. He started 37 of those 39 games as a redshirt player there. This year, though, at San Diego State, he started all 31 of the Aztecs games, was their leading scorer and assist man, 13.4 points a game, 3.9 assists, 3.9 rebounds, had a steal a game as well. In that loss to the Heels a couple weeks ago, he had 12 points, 5 boards, and 2 assists. Has just 1 year of eligibility left, but similar to Jalen Withers, next year would actually be his 6th year in college. He played a year at FAU, had a red shirt the year after that, then had a couple more years at FAU, then this year at San Diego State, and now is looking to transfer. And so Carolina is a potential landing spot there. Obviously, career numbers, 9.4 points a game, 3.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 37% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. He was never lower than 34% in any one single season. He's got a low turnover percentage, 12.4% for his career, never higher than 14.8%. We will take that. His career assist to turnover ratio is 2-1. I love this quote from Brian Dutcher, San Diego State's head coach. I found this that he said about him, quote, "Nick is everything you want in a player." Great. I trust Brian Dutcher. He's a great coach. I love that right out of the gate. He prioritizes winning first and foremost. He is an elite point guard as both a scorer and playmaker. His ability to score at all 3 levels, 3-point shot, mid-range, and at the rim, make him very hard to defend. Multiple things there I love about that quote from Brian Dutcher. Number one, he prioritizes winning first and foremost. And I've seen that from just watching him and covering college basketball nationally. This is a true statement from Coach Dutcher. It's not just some coach speak. Nick Boyd cares more about winning than his own stats. He cares more about winning than he does not saying hard things to his teammates, not holding his teammates accountable. He cares about winning more than that, right? Like he's going to say what he needs to say. The things you want a guy to do, especially as your point guard, right? Like that's the quarterback. You need him to step up. I like that he's both a scorer and a playmaker. We are coming off a time when Elliot Cadeau has been a phenomenal playmaker. That's a bit turnover and foul prone, but not that much of a scorer. Nick Boyd is a combo of both of those things, and he can do it at all the levels of the game. That is encouraging to me. Also, he's a New York kid. You know Hubert Davis loves his New York, both playing there up at Madison Square Garden and get guys that are from New York as well. So I think that is a positive on the Carolina side of things. Also, he's from New York. He's been out a year on the West Coast. I think he's probably got to want to come back closer to home. Obviously, he played his first several years still on the East Coast in Florida, but maybe splitting the difference. Coming to Chapel Hill would be a nice change of pace there. Let's go to some pros and cons about Nick Boyd. On the pro side, I've already mentioned it, but let's just say it again. Leadership. That to me is one of the things that I've identified that Carolina was drastically missing this year, was a vocal leader who would step up. You know, we've often talked about Cormac and Harrison. So many of the guys on the team also pointed to Paxton Wojcik kind of behind the scenes. Carolina needs that, and I believe Nick Boyd would bring it. I like that he's a southpaw just like me, but legitimately, it does cause problems for a lot of people because they're so used to guarding guys that are right-handed and forcing them one way, and this forces you to go the other. A third thing that is a pro for me, he'll actually shoot the basketball, Nick Boyd will. That is good news, 4 attempts a game from beyond the arc, but also hits them at a good rate, 37%. Yes, Nick Boyd, bring that on, because Carolina has been forced in both of these two Elliot Cadeau years into teams just sagging off, clogging the lane, and that causes all sorts of spacing problems. Carolina needs guys that will shoot. Also, the low turnover percentage. Love this. Again, his career turnover percentage is 12.4. Contextually, you're like, okay, is that good or bad? Well, Elliot's best turnover percentage season was his freshman year, where he was at 19%. He was at 25.6% this year on turnover percentage. That means Nick Boyd's career average is less than half of what Elliot did this past year in terms of holding on to the ball. His offense and defensive rating, that is Nick Boyd, is really solid. 103 on offense, 106 on defense. That's basically a measure offensively of how many points you contribute per 100 possessions and how many points defensively you stop or allow per 100 possessions. Elliot was at 103 offensively. Nick Boyd is at 116. Elliot, 106 defensively. Nick down at 100. So both of those are better than what we are coming off of. I also like up in the pro column, Nick Boyd's Final Four experience. Like, that's a real thing, man. That is a real thing. Carolina is losing that with RJ Davis, right? They've had Final Four experience on the roster, and bringing in somebody like Nick Boyd, who is a winner, who's been in that situation, would be great. So to sum up, he's going to take care of the ball. He's going to shoot it and make it. And he's going to defend, because you don't go to San Diego State and not defend, right? You remember going into that game, we talked about how they're the number one scoring defense. Like, that's what he's coming off of. He's going to take care of the ball, shoot, and defend. Sign me up for that. Yes. And again, as Coach Dutcher said, he cares about winning. So fit is not an issue. Bring in this as a strong possibility. And again, the size, 6'3", great stuff. What about the cons? Well, San Diego State's offense was really bad this year, 116th in the nation in offensive efficiency. But I do need to question, is that about him or is it about the players around him? Because San Diego State is known as a defensive entity, not an offensive entity. They are rarely, highly efficient offensively. I would suggest that number is more about San Diego State's focus on defense, but still, it is a data point that we have to consider when thinking about, do we want Nick Boyd? As further context, I look back at what happened with him being the starting point guard for FAU the last several years. In his last 2 years at FAU, They were 22nd nationally in offensive efficiency both of those years. That gives me good hope and encouragement that this year at San Diego State was the anomaly. The next con I would say is that he's just, while he is both a playmaker and scorer, he's not going to come close to matching Elliot's assist percentage. Elliot this year was at a crazy high 38%. Nick was in the low 20s this year. Now, that's solid and good, but it's not Elliot. So is that counterbalanced enough by the scoring he brings that Elliot didn't? That's something that you have to weigh out if you're Hubert Davis and Jim Tanner. Thirdly, on cons, similar to the conversation we had about another Nick on Friday's show, that being Nick Dorn, is Nick Boyd, is he Carolina level? Is he Power 5 level, right? Like, he's played at Florida Atlantic, he's played at San Diego State, wasn't a high-level recruit coming out. Can he do it? Right? Like, I mean, obviously he competed well against Carolina and at San Diego State against some of the highest level competition there is. And the Mountain West is a strong conference. But like, is he who we want running the first team? I don't know. Maybe. I would feel a lot more comfortable if it was like Nick Boyd's coming in to run the second unit, to be the guy that comes off the bench and just takes care of stuff following the starting point guard. If that's the role, I feel perfect with it. If he is the starting point guard, if that's what Carolina is pursuing him for, I'm not sold yet. I'm not saying I can't get my mind wrapped around it. I'm just not sold yet. And then one other thing I would say is that being a lefty, a lot of his layups on the right side, he still finishes with the left. Now, sometimes you want to do that to avoid shot blocking. Sure, great. I understand that. But times when he doesn't need to. So is his right hand strong enough? I don't know. Landing spots, UNC obviously is an option since he just visited there this weekend. Would he go back to be with Coach Dusty May at Michigan, who he played for at FAU? Maybe. Would he go back home to New York City? Maybe go play for Rick Pitino at St. John's, that kind of concept. I remember also that Louisville was a big part of his recruitment last summer before he went to San Diego State, which, by the way, if Louisville was in on him, then I feel good about him coming to Carolina. It's just that question is there for me. All right. So there you go. Nick Boyd, a left-handed point guard. He's on campus this weekend. We will keep our eyes out on it. How about we talk about another lefty, a guy that literally just this weekend announced his intention to enter the transfer portal. And I tell you, he is a big that, Roy Williams would love to have on one of his teams. And that tells me all I need to know. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's going to cut down the nets next weekend in San Antonio. We're down to the final 4 remaining teams, and there's plenty of exciting lines to bet on. For example, as I record here on Sunday, we have half of the Final Four set. It's Duke and Florida. Duke right now is minus 105 to win the national championships. Florida with the second best odds at plus 250. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. I love that. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. From one lefty to another, from the backcourt to the front court, let me tell you about Kansas's Flory Bidunga, one of my favorite names in all of college basketball last season. His name was getting bungled just about every time I turned on the TV. I don't know what these announcers were doing. Bidunga announced on Saturday his intention to enter the portal. And so I'm recording this on Sunday. So as of yet, I've seen no list. I've seen nothing on who's in contact with him already. So I can't speak to any contact with Carolina. This is purely I want Flory Bidunga. I think he would be great for Carolina. And so that's where things are. He just finished his freshman year, so he's got 3 years of eligibility. Here's where I want to start before my hotel phone is ringing right now. That's terrible timing. Now it's not ringing. I'm just taking it off the hook. Welcome into podcasting, everybody. The best compliment I can give him, when I look at Flory Bidunga's game, he is a Roy Williams type big. Like if Roy Williams was still the coach of the University of North Carolina, he would salivate over Flory Bidunga. Why? Like when I think about Roy Williams bigs, it's guys who are athletic, score easily around the rim, can get out in transition and run and finish. And that is Flory. Like I think about Tyler Zeller just getting out and running. Tyler Hansborough going like that kind of thing is what Flory Bidunga can do, man. He can get out in the open court and run. He's got elite athleticism for a big, all of this stuff. Good grief. I hope with everything in me that Carolina pursues this young man. So that's the best compliment I can give him. You know, it seems like everything we're hearing right now is that Van Allen Lubin is planning to stay at North Carolina. My hope, and I've said this a couple times now, is that Carolina would get another big that would be the starter, that then Van Allen Lubin would either come off the bench or if it's the right guy, pair it with Van Allen Lubin in the starting lineup. I don't think that's the play. I don't think these two guys both start because I think Caleb Wilson should be, you don't know all the time with a freshman, but Caleb Wilson should be your starting four. What I would love to see is Carolina land Flory Bidunga and then bring in Van Allen Lubin behind him as kind of a Batman and Robin situation. I just think it would be really, really good, especially if we could get the Van Allen Lubin that we saw down the stretch of this season. Moreover, Bidunga is very unpolished right now. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but he could learn so much under Sean May. He could learn so much from Van Allen Lubin, who's now had multiple years of experience, could grow and flourish alongside James Brown as he continues to learn. Good night. Give me all the Flory Bidunga. He's a lefty. He's from Kokomo, Indiana, not originally. And all I hear in my head right now is the Beach Boys running through that song. He moved. He was born in the Congo in Africa, moved to the States when he was 15 to Kokomo, and that's where he played. Bidunga himself self-describes his game as being modeled after Giannis Antetokounmpo. I can never say his last name very well. Obviously, not as big because hardly anyone is as Giannis, both in terms of height and length. But Flory is big and he is long. And so that, it's like, oh, you're modeling your game after the Greek Freak. Cool. We will take that. He was a McDonald's All-American coming out of high school, the two-time Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year, both his junior and senior years. And keep in mind, this is a dude that just came to America the year before that. And he's turning into that quickly. Good grief, man. That's incredible. Coming out of high school, his rankings at the four major recruiting sites, 14th at 247, 17th at both ESPN and On3, and 19th at Rivals. And again, doing that after he had played just 3 years of American basketball. The concern that I have before we even get to pros and cons, he's listed on the Kansas website as 6'9", 225. I have seen him listed at a bunch of other places as 6'10". So there is a little bit of that. All right, Isaac, I got to adjust my chair. We've been talking so much about Carolina needing height and size, both in the backcourt where Carolina has been RJ at 6 foot and Elliot at 6'1" the past 2 years. And then in the front court this year, where you lost Armando's size and you came down to Van Allen Lubin and Jalen Washington, who's bigger, but just not having that bulk. And with Flory, he's 225. That's shy of Mondo's 240 that he was at. Mondo, for comparison's sake, his senior year was listed at 6'11", 240. And so Flory is giving up both height and weight to Armando. But I'll say something in response to myself and that concern. When you watch Flory Bidunga play, he does not play just 6'9". He plays bigger. He plays above the rimmier than Armando did. And there are things about his game then that make me trust him, despite that 6'9", 6'10"-ishness, which in reality is, just like an inch shorter than Mondo if he's 6'10", whatever. So he's given up a couple inches to like a Hunter Dickinson or a Malawach from Duke, right, who's 7'2". But the style of his game allows him to play a lot bigger. His athleticism, his above the rimness allows him to play bigger. So like I was shocked when I looked, like I've assumed all season that he was like 6'11", and then I looked at the roster and just saw 6'9". I was like, oh, that's weird. But for example, remember Armando like often struggling to get up above the rim and dunk, or missing dunks. Not Bidunga, man. This dude flushes everything in sight. And so that's going to lead me then to our stats and pros and cons. Stats: as a senior in high school, 19 points, 12.9 boards, 4.4 blocks, 3.2 assists, and shot 81.4% from the field. That's ludicrous. As a freshman this year, remember, he's buried behind Hunter Dickinson, so he didn't get as much playing time as he should have. 5.9 points, 5.4 rebounds, 0.3 assists, 1.6 blocks, and all of that in just 16 minutes. So he's blocking more than a shot and a half in just 16 minutes a game. Yeah, so that's where I'm like, I'm not worried about 6'9", 6'10". He played 34 games and started 6 in the midst of the season. And quite frankly, I thought Kansas was better when he was in. Shot 69.8% from the field, which led the Big 12. He led the Big 12 in shooting percentage as a freshman, more than his teammate Hunter Dickinson, anybody else. Who was 19th in the nation. Against Carolina, remember these two teams played. He had 8 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 block in 11 minutes. So wildly efficient. Let's talk pros. He is crazy athletic given size or given position. He's explosive, as we've already talked about. He plays above the rim. More pros. He moves wonderfully in the open court. I mean, it's not like he's going to get the ball and lead the break himself every time, but he can get it and start it, right? I remember a possession that I watched this year against UCF where he got a steal out on the perimeter, led the break, started it, pitched ahead to a teammate, and then took the alley back from it and dunked it in transition. Like, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. So he can start the break if need be. I love his frame. He looks filled out. He looks athletic. He looks like you don't want to mess with me. He's got good length, but also he's not just like a bludgeon. He's got great hands, receives the ball well, great touch around the rim, obviously to finish at that higher rate. But he can also catch on the move. You know, a lot of times you worry about like a guard throwing to a big who doesn't have great hands, and so he can't receive it. Not the case with Bidunga. He can absolutely do that. He's got some post moves. They are a little bit developing, but he can be a back to the basket scorer. Carolina missed that this year. Van Allen did that a little bit, but not a ton. Another pro, because of how short a time he's been playing organized American basketball, I don't think he has sniffed his ceiling. I think that Flory Bidunga has grown this much, but he's got up to the roof. The ceiling is the roof more to grow from terms of potential. The question is, how will that development continue? He's only been playing basketball since he was 14. I mentioned it. Kansas was not good this year, but I thought they looked better as a team when he was in. I think the Jayhawks were hampered by being basically beholden to Hunter Dickinson. Had Coach Self bit the bullet and said, I think we got to go with Bidunga, I think they could have won more basketball games. That's just me. We talked offensive and defensive rating earlier. Remember with Nick Boyd, it was, I've already lost it. With Nick, I'm scrolling back. 116, which is great, and 100 in defensive rating. And those are both really good. And then I look at Flory Bidunga and I'm like, oh, okay. 125.3 in offensive rating. That is insane. For reference, no one on this roster outside of Van Allen Lubin had a higher offensive rating. Ven's was 133. Crazy stuff. But Bidunga would have been second on the team this year. But for defensive rating, he was at 91.9. Nobody on Carolina's roster this year was under Jalen Washington's 104. And he was 13 points lower than that in defensive rating. That is an insane thing to have 125 and 91. Good grief. He has a low turnover percentage for a big. His rebounding percentage is 18%, which is like right in line with what Mondo did his freshman year. But you look at that, and it's like great, but he doubles Armando's block rate. Armando's best block rate was like 5 something. Flory, his freshman year, was 10.8. He can hold his own on the perimeter defensively when he needs to switch and do that because of his athleticism. And he is so good at the dunker spot. He is elite finishing those lobs and things like that. Some cons. Obviously, we've already talked about the size. Like, is there a concern that he's not 6'11", 7 foot? Perhaps. But again, I think he plays bigger than that, and I'm not too concerned. Because of the few years that he's been playing, there is something of a small sample size. Like, Can you trust it? I think so, but it is a question. Also, because of his limited years of playing basketball, he's very raw, needs more polish. That can only come with time, but also teaching, right? But offensively, in particular, like defensively, I think he is farther advanced than he is offensively, but the offense needs to come along. Cons, he doesn't shoot threes, just doesn't step out and do that right now. He also needs to be more active always offensively, right? There's times when I would watch Kansas this year and he would disappear on the offensive end of the floor. He needs to be more aggressive, active, and involved. Another con, can't create for himself, right? Like is going to have to depend on guards or big-to-big passing to finish and stuff like that. Also, similar to what we said about Nick Boyd, isn't great with his right hand yet. He's got to keep working on that and developing it. So there are some cons for Flory Bidunga. In terms of landing spot, one of the things that was mentioned when it was reported that he would enter the portal is that he could ultimately return to Kansas. So that's on the table. Again, I mentioned that Kokomo, Indiana is home. The Hoosiers are starting over. Darren DeVries is coming in from West Virginia, and they basically have no roster. Does he want to go help return the glory to the Hoosiers? Maybe so. But again, he's only lived there 3-4 years. So that's a thing as well. I would absolutely love if Carolina would reach out to Flory Bidunga. Let's get him in. All right, guys, we got to flip to, unfortunately, the women's basketball team ended, and even more unfortunately, it ended, their season did, at the hands of the Dukies. We'll talk about that in just a second. Unfortunately, the women lose in the Sweet 16 to Duke, 38-47 in a barn burner, an absolute barn burner. Buckets coming from everywhere. And so, unfortunately, because this was the first meeting between these two teams in the NCAA tournament, just like the men back in 2022, and it went the wrong way. For Carolina, 38 points. They shot under 30% from the field, from three. They only shot 50% from the free throw line. You're just not, literally no Tar Heels scored in double figures. I mean, you're not going to win when you're doing that. I don't care how good Carolina's defense is. The crazy thing, though, is that in the first 5 minutes and 41 seconds of this game, Carolina got out to an 11-0 start. And I was like, yes, this is great. But then Duke goes on a 21-2 run, during which Carolina was 0 of 12 from the field, had 6 turnovers. They had no field goals from 4:19 of the first quarter until 2:42 of the second quarter. So like 11 and a half minutes or something like, something like that, close to 12. Literally no points from 22 seconds of the first quarter until 2:42 of the second. By quarter, Carolina had 13, 7, 12, and 6 points. And remember, they had 11 in the first 5:41. That means over the final 34-19 of this game, they scored just 27 points. Yikes. Unfortunately, a big part of it was Maria Gakdang hurt her ankle early in the second quarter, and I thought that lack of size really hurt Carolina throughout the game. Nobody could hit threes in this game. Neither team hit 30 by halftime. Carolina had 20, and it's just disappointing. Obviously, for Alyssa Usby, this is her last game, and an unfortunate way to go out, but also for Lexi Donarski, for Maria Gakdang, for Grace Townsend. Usby finishes as the third leading rebounder in ACC history. Crazy stuff. Very thankful for all those ladies and their commitment to this university and program. We are so grateful for you. Baseball is in action this weekend against Miami. I'm recording before the third game on Sunday, but Carolina has already won the series, winning on Friday 2-0 and Saturday 4-2. Great stuff there. Might have been a sweep. We'll know later. Softball is at Syracuse. They lost 5-7 on Friday. No game Saturday because they had to reschedule a doubleheader on Sunday. Similarly, no results yet. And it sounds like they're hopeful they'll get a doubleheader in, but obviously you already know as you're listening or watching this. Women's tennis painfully lost to Duke on Wednesday 2-4, but then swept SMU on Friday 4-0. That's their first ACC loss. Now they're 16-4 on the season, 7-1 in ACC play. The men won their third straight on Friday, beating Miami 4-3. They are hosting FSU on Sunday. Again, I don't have that result yet. What I really want to mention is women's lacrosse, you guys, because, oh my goodness, they are absolutely rolling at the same level of ridiculousness that field hockey was back in the fall. Now, I should say they are playing Notre Dame later on Sunday today, so a couple hours after I record. Notre Dame's number 20. That's on the road, so they could lose that game. I'll just put that caveat in now, and obviously you know before you get it. But heading into that Notre Dame game, check this out. Carolina is 10-0. They're number 2 in the nation. On Thursday, they won at Northwestern, who's number 3 in the nation, 15-12. In their first 10 games, they have played 6 ranked opponents, and I've already told you they're undefeated, meaning they won them all. That was numbers 3, 4, 5, 9, 14, and 18 nationally. The only reason they haven't beaten number 2 is because they're number 2, and number 1 in the nation, Boston College, is coming up in like they play Notre Dame Sunday today, the day before you're listening to this, and their next game is against BC, number 1 in the nation. They're hosting them. I mean, this is a crazy schedule, and Carolina is just rolling through it, man. And how rolling through it? Well, they're outscoring their opponents this year 180-61. They've had at least 14 goals in every single game they've played. Great stuff there. As for men's lacrosse, 7-2 overall. They haven't yet played an ACC play. Unfortunately, they lost at Army on Saturday, 12-13, but now they will start ACC play next Saturday hosting Virginia. Several other things going on, but we are short on time, so we're going to have to get out of here. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Portal stuff happening all the time. I'm going to be dropping in portal stuff day after day after day. I'm thinking tomorrow on Tuesday, we're going to talk some Silas Demery. It doesn't sound like Carolina's on his radar or he on theirs, but he should be. And I want to get to that and so much more. So stay tuned all week long. If you've not joined the Locked on Tar Heels Insider Program, I mentioned it earlier. That's where I'm putting all of that portal information, man, like all the time. Any rumor I hear, it's getting dumped in there. Any confirmation I hear, it's getting dumped in there. When I see a target committed elsewhere, I'll put it in there. If you want to be inside on that information, that link is in the show notes. Come on and join us. If you haven't joined the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there as well. That link is in the show notes. Talk with Carolina fans all the time. If you've not subscribed on YouTube, do it. What are you waiting on? We'd love to have you. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.